Well, welcome to YHC TV's Hometown Heroes today. This is our first episode of Hometown Heroes, and we're going to visit with a fellow by the name of Joe Russ Brown. I've known him all of my life. He's a fine gentleman, and been a family friend for years and years. And he and his wife Marcella live at Shawan, Missouri. And for those of you that are not familiar with Shawan, it's kind of south and east of Bell City. And they've both been community leaders all their life, and are fine folks, and they live on a family farm down here, and have been real community leaders, like I say, all their life. I'd like to introduce to you now Joseph Russ Brown. And that's his lovely wife Marcella over there, and they've agreed with us to come in and visit with them today and talk about the past. I don't know how far back we'll go in the past, but anyways, welcome, Joe, to the Hometown Heroes. And I know you don't want to be referred to as a hero, but that's just kind of what we came up with the name of the program today.
I want to say something about that.
All right, sir.
In my opinion, the heroes are the ones that didn't come back.
That's exactly true.
Now, that isn't absolute.
Yes.
But broadly speaking, that's not always true, of course. There's exceptions to everything.
Yes.
But that's my feeling about it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't regard myself as a hero at all.
I didn't think you would.
Some people do, and that's their privilege.
That's their privilege.
Their opinion, let them have it. But anyway, I thought I'd get that in.
That's right. Well, like I say, they were, as a child, he and his wife were our 4-H leaders, and we came down to this very house. I don't know, it may be a smaller or bigger, I don't know.
It's been added to a little bit.
Been added to. It's been 50 years ago, I guess, Joe.
Oh, boy.
And like I say, he has been very helpful in the community, and those are familiar of you that are familiar with Bloomfield and the city park down there. There's a log cabin there, and Joe knew where this log cabin was at, and some of the folks wanted it moved to the Bloomfield area, to the park there. And I think he was the head chief cook and bottle washer in that project. And if you'll go up there now, it's standing, and it's a beautiful log cabin with a breezeway right in the center. And Joe, how long did that project take?
How long did it take to do that?
Yes.
We moved it with volunteer labor in approximately a year and a half.
A year and a
working every weekend, holiday, or whatever that I could get the gang together.
Yeah. Who were some of the folks that volunteered to help you?
Well, Grant Thorne, Jim Mayo, it was kind of the head idea of it. I don't know that he worked all that much, but there's a lot to be said about all that.
I know. Now,
I wasn't sure what was going to have. I called for volunteers before I undertook the job, see how many there was going to be.
I bet.
And the hands went up, but when work time came, I didn't have half that many.
Well, where was the log cabin sitting at, Joe?
About a mile and a half or two southwest of Klein's Island.
Oh, really? Huh. Who did it belong to at the time?
Well, the guy that had charge on it was, he lived at, what's that town down the road there from it? No.
Circle City?
No.
Well,
but anyway, he had a cotton, there was an old cotton gin that quit running.
Bird's Corner?
No.
Well, I don't know. That's not important.
No.
Anyways.
He gave us permission to move it.
Well, good, good.
I might come up with his name in a minute.
Yeah. Well,
Davis.
Davis.
Man named Davis.
I see. Well, Joe, going back in time here a little bit, can you tell us when World War II was going on, and did you volunteer to go into service, or what was the story on that?
I volunteered before the war.
Did you? And how old were you?
I was 18.
18. And where did you go do your basic at?
At Great Lakes.
Great Lakes, and that's in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Is that right?
No.
Michigan?
Great Lakes, Illinois.
Great Lakes, Illinois. Well,
It's just south of Chicago some.
Well, there's one state that claims they have more lakes than any
Oh
other.
boy.
Anyways.
Well, geography is
Illinois.
a strange thing.
Yeah. And when you got in there, did you request to have any certain kind of training? What was you interested in? Whatever they put on you, or what?
Well, after we got in there, they evaluated us as we was about to graduate.
Yes, sir.
And they said, well, you made some pretty good impression here, good grades. You got your choice where you want to go.
Well,
For further training. And I said, well, I didn't particularly have anything in mind, but I thought, well, how about radio school?
radio.
And they tested my ears and said, oh, you got something wrong with your ears. You don't hear right. Can't do that. I said, well, how about aviation mechanics then?
Yeah.
And okay, so I headed for Seattle.
Did you? And did you enjoyed that work and was rather proficient in it, I suppose?
As well as I remember, there were about 50 or 60 from various places in the country there in that class. 3-month thing.
Uh-huh.
Was going to be an aviation machinist after 3 months now,
Yes,
mind you. And anyway, I think I got about second or third highest score in there.
Is that right?
And they had now you can have a choice whether you want to go to the Lexington, which was in at Seattle then, the carrier, or to the PBY squadron based there. VP 41. And I said, well, I've always used to my feet on the ground. I think I'll stay with the PBYs.
I see.
I don't know whether I want to go to sea or not,
Yeah.
even though I joined the Navy. So I ended up with that.
I see. Well, and you were stationed out of a place in Alaska?
I was in there about 6-8 months. Then the thing was moved to Alaska.
I see.
To Kodiak.
Kodiak.
Kodiak base. And to operate out of the area,
Yes.
get feeling for out over the real ocean,
Right.
But and getting closer to Japan too.
And
there was tension with Japan
yes,
already.
I know there was. Yes, that's right. Now, when you left in that plane that day that got shot down, Pearl Harbor hadn't been attacked yet, had it?
Oh, it had been Well,
Oh, it had?
that we had come back to the States, to Oregon,
Oh, I see.
and got to Tone Point, Oregon, and got new planes, all new 5As. The old PBYs, when you could land only on the water, but you had to beach the thing by running up to a ramp, and they would put wheels. Guys wade in the water, put the wheels on it, and then they could pull it up on the beach.
Well, that's neat.
But these were 5As. That means they were amphibian. They could either land on the runway or in the water.
Well, that's very
The newer
versatile.
plant version.
Well, tell us a little bit about that day that you took off in the plane, where you were going when your plane
Oh boy!
had an attack.
We had already gotten back to Tone Point. Then they moved us. I wasn't there. We weren't there long, and they moved us to Dutch Harbor out on the Aleutian Islands.
Yes, sir.
And I had to ride a ship there. There's a lot of mixed up with why I had to do that.
Sure.
Even at Seattle, before I went to Kodiak, I had developed a new way. They had made me a plane captain.
Did they?
I hadn't been in there but 3 or 4 months, and one day a chief come along and says, "Come with me," and he took me in the hangar, and there was 2 PBYs in there, and he went up to one of them and said, "You're a plane captain. This is your plane." I almost fainted. Here I was, a little old seaman first class.
Yes, sir.
didn't know beans about much of nothing. I'd help change an engine or two a little bit, helping guys.
Yeah.
And they made me a plane captain. You know what that means? That means I was in charge of keeping that plane flying.
Yes, sir. And you had boys working under you.
Under me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's quite a responsibility.
Right. Well, I like to paint it.
I can imagine. Well, when y'all took off that day, was there several planes in your squadron, or how?
Well, the way they operate, we had about let's see, we had about 10 planes in that squadron.
I see.
PBYs. What they do when they're they're basically a search plane. They can fly up to 3,000 miles without stopping.
My goodness.
And they go out and they fly out, like say you're Dutch Harbor. You fly out and there'll be a plane take a sector, fly out over a little and come back.
Yes, sir.
There'll be other planes going another direction, looking for the enemy, watching all the ocean out there around.
I see.
And that's what we were on a mission like that.
I see. And I guess was it who spotted you? Was it some fighter planes that spotted you?
We were flying in the weather up there in the Aleutians.
Was what
It's
crazy
terrible.
weather, yeah, about as bad as you can
You
get.
can't believe it's unless you've been there. It can be sunshiny in the time, say in the spring of the year, warm, and in 30 minutes it'll be snowing and sleeting, and the wind blowing 100 miles an hour.
My goodness.
It comes up over those mountains.
Yeah.
Oh man. And fog.
Yeah.
I never saw fog like anywhere else like that.
And when you're flying like that in the fog, that fellow.
That's it. You
That's
just
it.
barely see your wingtip.
Yeah, that's right. That fellow, the navigator and the pilot, better know where they're going, doesn't they? Anyways, getting back to the day that you all got shot down, and I know that was a terrible day, but can you tell us a little bit about the beginning of the attack?
I was asleep. I had eaten something that upset my stomach, and I had told my position was a gunner machinist, but I wasn't the plane captain.
Sure.
But anyway, just seaman first class. And I had told the guy I was getting sick at my stomach, and he said, well, go lay down on one of the bunks, and I'll watch your gun, a machine gun, 50 caliber. And anyway, I went and laid down, and the next thing I knew, I fell out of the bunk.
Did you?
And down on the walkway, and this Carl Creamer, he had stopped, got up from the gun, but I didn't know that. He was back there where the waist gun was, and he had come up there. We had I didn't drink coffee, but had a little coffee pot going in there, and he had come to get him because that wind coming in that open hatchway, he had it open, because you had that gun sticking out there. And I woke up, woke up and saw him drop that cup on me and head for the back. He ran right over me. And so I went back there and said, what do I do? Go forward, see that maybe they need help with a forward gun. That's where the pilots were. And I started that way, and then they said, no. I got to the navigator, was the third pilot Hunt, and he said, go back and take over the gun. The rear gun is jammed, and this Carl Creamer was an ordnanceman, and said, tell him to go back there and help unjam that tail gun. And so I went back and took the machine gun, took it over, and went back, and the plane had already been attacked. That's when they dumped me, but we didn't know that.
Yes, sir.
They jumped out of the clouds right on us. But anyway, so we flew. Then we dropped down close to the water.
Yes, sir.
That's so that they couldn't get under us.
Yeah.
That's the way to do that. And the visibility was poor, and we got in it was foggy and well, same as clouds, and we was pretty well hidden. And all of a sudden we broke out in the open, and there was 4 Zeros. They could see us good enough to follow us, and they were high up on the starboard side in formation. And I reported to the pilot 4 Jet planes high, and he said thank you, and one of them peeled off.
Yeah.
Now, here is something that I'd hate to talk about. I had never touched a machine gun before.
Yeah.
Never. And here I was going to shoot somebody down with a 50 caliber machine gun.
Yes, sir.
Well, I knew how they operated. I'd heard talk.
Sure. And
they did have, when we were in school, they had an ordnanceman, a chief ordnanceman, come in and take a 50 caliber apart, every part of it, put it back together, name it and all that. Of course, we took tests on all this, see if we remembered, but I never touched one. Well, when I went to shoot, I looked through that telescope. I couldn't see a thing. I don't know whether the cap was on it or whether it was had seawater spray on it or fog. So I pulled the trigger when the tracers started. It had tracers every 5th one, I think. And I used that to track what I was shooting at. Do you want to go on about that?
Pardon?
You want to go on about that?
Not if you don't want to.
Okay, well, it don't matter.
Well, is it this kind of odd thing that you was even on that plane that day? Wasn't there a fellow that you took his place?
Yeah, we got past that. There was, when I got to Dutch Harbor, they put me up in the barracks, sweeping the floors and mopping the floors and taking care of the barracks.
Yeah.
I guess hadn't decided what to do with me. And that day, here I was up there, and somebody run up and said, "Hey, you're wanted down at the beach. There's a guy got sick on a crew that was leaving out, and you take his place." I grabbed my little bag and put a pair of socks in it and my toothbrush and took off.
Away you went. Little did you know what you was in for, did you?
Oh no. Well, I was glad to be flying again.
Well, were you? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, that had to have been exciting. Now, when you got attacked there and the plane finally got to, I guess, where it couldn't fly, and they ditched it right there in the ocean.
Well, we're not sure just what really all happened.
Okay.
Because I was in the back with the gun, and the waves, by the way, it was running pretty high.
Was they?
4 or 5 foot waves.
Oh my.
Oh yeah.
That's not a smooth runway.
And bad weather, raining, maybe a little sleet and snow now and then and stuff.
He might not even been able to tell, where the water began and,
Oh yeah, that's up to pilots.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, they're kind of trained for that.
Anyway, we finally hit.
And I know from reading in your book, when all this commenced, I know what you had written in the book. You probably thought this was the end of Joe Brown right here and there.
Well, down at that time.
You too busy.
Well, until we hit. When we hit the water.
Right.
We were only flying on one engine.
Were you?
The oil, a bullet had hit the other engine, and I guess the oil had run out, and they had to freeze it.
And later on, during this, you found where you'd been. A bullet that went through your trousers?
Yeah, while I was shooting at him, he was shooting at me.
I think I would have done the same thing.
I thought it hit me and it didn't hurt, but I wrote in there, I said, oh, well, they say bad wounds don't hurt. But it turned out after it was all over that it ripped the edge of my pants right by my knee.
And you all had those life rafts and you pitched them out and jumped in them, thought, well, I'll pull this.
No, we didn't get in them.
You didn't?
They started, when we pulled the plug to inflate it.
Yeah, it was full of bullets.
I'd throw it over and it went to bubbling.
Yeah.
It shot full of holes.
And were you in? Did you jump in the water then? And
Carl Creamer says he come out of the back. There's several other things happened in between there, but anyway, he said, you better jump, it's going to sink. It was already, the tail was going up.
Was it?
Yeah.
Now, how many made it out of the plane, Joe?
Well, I don't know whether everybody ever got out of it.
Okay.
I jumped, he jumped, and he swam over to the wing, and I was trying to untangle the raft and get the thing blowed up yet.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was sizzling, and so I went over to got over and got on. He got on the wing. Now he didn't have a life jacket.
No,
he was there on a special mission, and somebody had forgotten to put enough life rafts on life jackets on there. But anyway, I went over and got on the wing. Now I want to mention something.
Okay.
That water up there, they say that even yet, I've heard just within the last few years, fishermen up there say that if you fall in the water in bad weather and they don't get you out in 15 minutes, leave you there. Just as well leave you there.
Just as well leave you there, my goodness. And y'all spotted another raft and swam to it?
Yeah, that's what happened. He swam to it, and of course I decided I better swim to it too.
Yeah.
Stay together, you know.
That's right. And that old rough sea is bound to tell how far it was, and but you finally got there and got on that raft.
No, I didn't get on it.
You didn't?
There was three. There's a two-man raft, a little front, the one up with the pilots.
Yeah.
They had gotten it out in the meantime some way.
I see.
And they were there. Hunt, the third pilot, who had been the navigator, acting as navigator, was holding Cusick, the first pilot. He had been apparently, so I heard, shot through the body some way, and he died a few minutes later.
Did he?
And Hunt put him over the side, and the other pilot was an air pilot. He was an enlisted man that went to pilot school, and he was hanging on the side. I was hanging on the side, and Carl Creamer was hanging on the side.
Right.
So there were 5 of us of the 9 there.
Yeah.
But he died. The next thing that I remember happening, more or less, is that the air pilot hanging on suddenly floated away. And in those waves, of course, we went up on a wave over, never saw him again.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he probably have been down in the trough when we were up.
That's right.
Wave. Anyway, that's the way it was.
Now, the main pilot, was his name Hunt?
No, the first pilot on that flight was Cusick, Lieutenant Cusick.
I see.
Hunt would have been second or third. However, he was acting as navigator at the time.
Well, and then here came the Japanese ship. How long before they
We don't know.
You don't know.
We don't know.
Things just kind of blacked out on you instead of first time.
Oh, yeah, by that time I was out.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Now, I ended up laying across the raft to keep it balanced.
Did you?
See, there was Creamer got on it, and then that put 2 on it, and then I could tell that the thing I remember is my feet was getting so cold, hanging in the water on the other side. And I said, how about me trying to, no. I said, I'm getting cold. How about me trying to lay across the raft so it'd be balanced, you see.
Sure.
It wouldn't do to have 3, one sitting on one edge,
No.
little old donut,
Yeah.
But anyway, he said, well, try it. So I timed it so that the raft would be tilted on the side of a wave and found myself in it.
I see, yeah.
And landed right just across it.
And when they picked you up, then they got you on the ship, and they kind of halfway took care of you, give you some dry blankets, or.
Oh yeah.
And
when I came to, and I don't know, it was probably the next day. couldn't tell time or anything.
Of course.
Uh, I looked around, and my vision was poor, just fuzzy. And gradually I woke up, and I saw over across was a couple of figures, and they was holding what looked like spears, something, in their arm. And I thought, uh-oh, I done gone to hell, and there's two of old Satan's angels holding pitchforks.
Yeah.
But then in about a minute or so, I cleared up and saw it was two Japanese sailors with rifles and bayonets.
Yeah.
Oh man, you can't. It's hard to believe things like that.
It is, isn't it?
But boy.
And now, tell me about this Canadian pilot, Birchall. Was he already on the?
Oh no, that's a whole different story.
Oh, it is. Okay, well, let's just skip him. We'll come back to him. When the time.
I ran into him later after we were captured.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to take a little break, and we'll come back to this in a minute, Joe. We'll have a little break, gather our thoughts up.
Like a tree, it all starts from the roots. Southern Bank started with one small financial institution, and over 125 years has grown without losing the small town feel. At Southern Bank, you have options through their popular Kasasa accounts, online banking, and loans. Southern Bank has been serving communities for 125 years. We have never forgotten who has made us the local hometown community bank. You, the people in the communities we serve. Southern Bank is centrally located at 713 Business 60 West in Dexter and has 17 other locations throughout Missouri and Arkansas. We invite you to drop in and visit us or check us out at bankwithsouthern.com. Southern Bank, strong roots, strong branches. Member FDIC.
With an interactive home security system from New Wave, your family comes home to peace of mind. Now we bring you the future of home security. Arm and disarm your system remotely from your office computer or iPhone. Even look in on family or pets with live video from inside your home. In an emergency, our 24/7 alarm monitoring responds with the help you need. Peace of mind wherever you are. Now available from New Wave Communications.
All right, we're back from our break here again with Joseph Russ Brown, and went through our first segment. And Joe, I'd kind of like to go up to the time where they took you to your first prison camp, and what was the name of that?
Ofuna. It was a secret camp, interrogation camp, and strictly for interrogating prisoners.
Okay.
And we went the ship. We were on that ship almost a month.
Oh my!
Getting to Japan.
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of strange things happened on it. They treated us fairly well, except for beating Hunt half to death to try to find out where that secret army base was. By that time, the ship had been attacked by 4-engine bombers.
Oh my!
And they didn't think there was a 4-engine bomber within thousands of miles of there. It scared them to death.
I bet.
Oh boy, they was scared to death.
Joe, I remember in the book also where you talk like they would, and you might not want to talk about this if you don't tell me, but they would take bamboo cane and strip them in 4 pieces. If I'm thinking this right, and they would turn them around backwards and then wound them together to where the sharp
edges would stick out.
And I know how tough bamboo is, and I know what they use it for, but you got to see quite a bit of abuse with that.
Well, that was later at Ofuna.
Was it?
Camp, yes.
Yeah. But I know how tough bamboo is, and I can just imagine, and that'd be pretty tough. But they did, at those prison camps, they would kind of set you up, like I remember the tomatoes or some kind of fruit there that they would put in plain view of you, and hungry, and you'd want to reach out and get that tomato or whatever, and they know you was going to get caught, and when you did, it wasn't good, was it? That bamboo cane would come out. But they did bait you, didn't they? Try to get you, entice you to take some
They
stuff?
did everything they could to try to
Yeah.
get an excuse to beat you up.
And
I guess everything they could. I
yes,
don't
sir.
know.
Yes, sir. And once in a while, you had to go take a shower, or did they just turn hose on you, or what did they what did they do?
You mean at Ofuna?
Yes, sir.
No, you wanted to. We got to take a bath once a week.
Once a week. And that
Yeah.
bathtub, it wasn't built.
Well, they wasn't like our bathtubs.
They were built. They wasn't built for 6'4"
No,
235 Joe Brown, was it?
no.
How'd you squeeze yourself in that bathtub?
Well, it's about like climbing in a barrel.
Was it? My goodness, huh? Did they laugh at you? Make fun
Oh,
of you?
no,
Well,
no.
good. And Joe, I understand why you were a prisoner, whether it was there or later on. A lot of the boys didn't care to know a thing about the Japanese language or the cultures or whatever, but you was interested in it, and you tried to get every library book and everything that you could read to learn more about your situation, what they thought.
Well, that was at Zensuji after I got there.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
At Ofuna, they were nothing like that.
They wasn't
No,
nothing.
no.
It was a little tougher camp, wasn't
Well, they was interested in one thing:
it?
getting the information.
Now, I think this was at, how do you pronounce Sanjuzi? The second?
Zensuji.
Zansuji. I don't know if I can ever say that.
Well,
or not.
it's that's Japanese
Yeah,
for you.
Yeah. And is that where you actually, did they make you recite or sing the Japanese national anthem?
Oh yeah. The old commander, he had us all pulled out, and he gave us a speech. Said, "Well, you all are going to be citizens of Japan from now on. It's going to be a 100-year war. You might as well start learning your national anthem." And so they had the guards sing along, and we sang along. And if you didn't, then he'd have to take you one at a time and try you out and see how you're doing. And if he said, if you did pretty fair, he'd say, "Oh, Johto, good."
Good.
Or if you did real good, he'd say, "You Roshi, real good."
Now, did some of the officers refuse to sing it? Or
If you didn't sing it very good, he'd say, "Wateroo," and then he'd start beating on you. Next time you're going to learn quicker.
Yeah. and Joe,
Oh boy.
I know they starved you to death at both camps. Wasn't
Pretty much.
it? Which one was the worst as far
Well,
as
Ofuna, yeah, bad.
And that's where you all, this book here, it says "We Stole to Live" by Fingers Joe Brown, Joe Rush Brown. And how'd you get the nickname Fingers?
Well, I got that in Zensuji, but now at Ofuna, you mentioned this fellow Burchell, or do you want to go on and talk about
that'd be
him?
all right. I know he was an important person in the.
When they took us in there, they separated us three. There was three of us survived, and they were apparently overcrowded. They had a bunch of I don't know, I forgot now, about 40 little old cells in there, about 6 by 9, and they tried to have one man in each cell. But they were overcrowded, I think, because they put me in with a fella, and it turned out to be a fellow named Lieutenant Burchell of the Canadian Air Force, who was a pilot of PBY that was down at what was called, with the British, at Ceylon, called Sri Lanka now, I think. And they were out patrolling because they knew that at that time, this was a little after we were captured. At this same time, the British had their biggest fleet heading down there that was going to destroy the British power in the Pacific.
Yes, sir.
And it's based at Ceylon. And they knew the main force, the British force, would be there. And they sent it down, and he he just happened to run onto the Japanese fleet, that big fleet, and radioed in and they shot them down before they could even confirm they even got the message in. But anyway, it did, and the British dispersed the fleet. They didn't have enough power to confront the half of the Japanese Navy, so they scattered them. And the poor old Japanese sent that big fleet down there for almost nothing. They did bomb the place and sunk a little ship or two. Not much.
Now, Joe, when you was in prison camp, is that when you started using the Morse code, tapping your fingers to the cell next door?
I tried that on the ship.
Was it?
While we were still on there.
I see.
But Creamer, I guess he'd been in the Navy a while, and he either never learned it very good. I couldn't make out what he was trying to say. I used to be able to do that.
Did you?
Not experienced, but I can tap out a message.
Yeah. Now, somehow you managed to get news out about some folks that was missing in action, or tell us how.
That was at Zensuji. I hadn't been there long, 2 or 3 weeks, and they let out that they were going to allow prisoners that wanted to volunteer to send a message over the radio, Tokyo radio, and say a little something, real short. You had to write it up, and they had to censor it and all that. And if you stayed with that message, I mean, that's what you... Yeah. And anyway, I just thought, well, I wasn't going to do it. Propaganda, I knew that. And then I heard that some of the guys were naming some of their buddies. If their message went through, the buddy's message might not.
That's right.
But they would name them that he's here, he's here, he's here. And I thought, well, here's Hunt and Creamer back there in Ofundi yet, as far as I knew.
Yeah.
And I'll just take a chance and say, hey, Creamer, and give their addresses, and Hunt are here in Japan. And I thought, now if they catch me, if they check and catch me that those guys ain't supposed to be reported yet, man, I don't know what would happen. But I figured they were so stupid that they wouldn't, and they didn't, so they sent it.
Yeah. And word finally got home and
family. They got postcards, letters.
Look good.
Dozens of them.
Well, good deal. Well, thanks to you. Anyways, did they give you newspapers and update you on the war anyway?
We got printed in English, the YHC, yes, a regular paper, but of course it had the Japanese version in it.
Sure.
But we'd read between the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I remember one time, you got to see a movie picture. They showed you a movie about Dumbo the Flying Elephant. That wasn't? It was
no, they didn't show any pictures to us.
What was about the Dumbo the Flying Elephant?
When I got to Zensuji, I was the only one there who had been in the United States after the war started.
I see.
They thought I was going to be an expert and tell them how the war was going on.
Oh. And then
they said, but the main thing they wanted to know, who was the latest movie star?
So you told me it was Dumbo the Flying Elephant.
And I said, well, I didn't go to the movies much. I never did care anything about movies. And but I said there was a thing about Dumbo the Flying Elephant.
Okay.
I remember that one. And that they didn't want to hear about a flying elephant. They wanted to hear about the latest beauty queens, Oh, good night. And I didn't even hardly remember their names.
I
didn't even know them.
I bet.
Never heard of them.
Now, one of the guys showed you a map of Japan and said Japan little, and then he showed you a map of the United States, said United States big.
Big.
And he was saying to you that we're going to own this country. Is that what was he just saying, that how this little country has whooped your country? What was the reference?
No, they didn't have whooped it, but this big country was picking on that little.
Oh, they were picking on
little old thing, like a little tick. we'd picked on them, so they fought back.
Yeah. And at one of these camps, the officers refused to work, didn't they?
That was in Suji.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And
they banded together.
I see. And they was about to starve for water one time, if I remember right, and food.
Well, that came in with the time that, with the affair, after a year or so, one of the enlisted men, a Marine from Guam, found out how to get right next to the camp, over the fence, was an Army storehouse. They had Zensuji had a big Army camp around it, a Japanese Army camp. And they had their supplies in that big building. It's very similar to ours. And we knew that because we saw them bringing trucks in there and unloading them into that thing. Everything, food, clothes, they just had everything in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, he found out how to get into it.
I see.
And but they caught him finally.
Yeah.
They didn't catch him actually stealing, but they railroaded him into a civilian penitentiary. But anyhow, after he got gone, they put guards on that place day and night for about 2 weeks, and thought, well, they had everything sealed down where there's going to be no trouble. And the night they quit guarding that place, the officers upstairs were watching it day and night.
Were they?
And when they saw the last Japanese guard that they had around that thing day and night, guarded it, they went over the fence and started stealing out of it too. Oh boy.
Joe, one of the guards that you got to know a little bit, he called you a priest. You remember that incident?
Oh yeah, I remember that very well.
Well, tell us.
Oh boy.
Why would he call you a priest?
Well, he didn't exactly do that. He said, what he said was, I had noticed, and at night they had a guard patrolling the inside of our barracks, both barracks that way. He'd go along the hall, then upstairs and go down that one, and just walk around all night long. And we had a guard watching them. They'd walk, but we would walk the other way. We would walk this direction, they would walk this way. Anyway, we didn't walk together. And anyway, but we would pass each other. And on this particular night, I was on watch up in the night, and this little bitty Japanese, looked like a grown kid, but he's a pretty good sized kid. But I noticed he looked bright. And I had noticed that past time or two, and finally, we was upstairs, and they had these little dim lights about just at night, just a dim, little old thing about 10 watt or something. You just illuminate it just you could see. And he stopped me. He said, "Say, who are you?" Spoke almost perfect English. And I remember a little fellow there, and he was real bright-eyed, and he said, I told him, "Where did you live?" And I told him. And he said, "Well, how did you get captured?" And I told him. And he said, "Well, weren't you afraid of being killed?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Because I'd already died."
Yep.
You can't die twice.
Yep.
He looked at me, and then he started on. Well, I started a step or two, and then I turned and looked back, and he was standing just looking at me. Had stopped and turned around and was looking. But when he saw me turn, why, he turned and went on. He said, "You must be very close to God."
Yeah.
That was what he said.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I don't know about that, but that was an amazing thing. But that was, who would have thought you'd have heard a thing like that
right.
over there?
Yeah. And when you referred to that you had already died, you were referring to being shot down out there.
Well, I was unconscious, didn't even know it was picked up till the next day.
Yeah.
and was hopeless. We just, there we were way out there in the ocean,
right.
didn't know which way it
No.
was, and no hope of, and how in the world was they going to, and all the weather was terrible. How are you going to even send search planes out
Sure.
just in case they
that's right.
did?
Yeah. Now, did the Japanese have a doctor that was
Yeah.
look at you?
He came down when I come up, and of course he's probably looked at me before,
Yeah.
but he came along for couple of days there, and he spoke a little English, and he'd listen, you know, and he'd say, oh, you're Roshi, good, and he seemed amazed that I was coming to, and made it.
Now, y'all, when you was in the prison camp, you had your own American doctor that kind of
Yes.
looked after you the best he could. He had
Oh yeah,
he had to get
yes,
little medication that he
Yes.
receive, I guess.
right, Dr. Van Peenan.
And
There was other doctors in there, but they had specialties.
yeah,
He was a general practitioner.
Now, how long were you a prisoner of the Japanese, Joe?
Well, a little short of 3.5 years.
Oh my, that's a long time. 3.5 years. Now, certain holidays had to be bad for you. I know you referred to the book there in the book, Christmas or Christmas Eve. Did they let you do any American customs there in prison at all to celebrate certain days?
Yes. We had some groups, mainly officers and some enlisted men, that formed singing groups and acting groups and put on shows like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and all.
I remember a Christmas Carol. You said something in there about a Dickens.
We had
Christmas Carol.
an Italian a Marine named Carrillo. He was I would say he was as good a tenor as I ever heard in my life. And at one evening, at one of the sing-songs, I would call them sing-songs, the Japanese would attend them too. And they kind of enjoyed them. So a lot of them know a little English.
Yes, sir.
They teach it in their schools. But anyway, he, at about the time the sun was going down, I remember they timed it so that he come on,
Yeah.
he got up and sang, was it Ave Maria?
I think that's
So-
what you said.
And oh, I'll tell you, you couldn't have.
Just close your eyes and soak it in,
It
wouldn't you?
was just, tears was running down everybody's eyes.
Well, good. Huh.
Oh, Carrillo was he had a tenor. Oh boy, he could sing.
Now, when you met an officer or just a soldier, did they expect you to bow to them like their custom?
We were salute officers.
You saluted them, you didn't bow to them?
Oh, if you didn't have a hat on, you bowed.
I see.
Oh yeah.
And they didn't like it if you didn't bow, did they?
Yes.
I guess. And if I remember right, one time in the book there, the name Filler Diller came up. Now tell us about
Yeah.
Filler and Diller.
Well, that was at work down at Takamatsu. I used to play jokes on them. See, you mentioned it. You didn't mention the library. Ambassador Grew had left his library when he was exchanged
Yes, sir.
to the Zensuji camp, and I used to read those books.
Sure.
Well, hardly the officers might have read them some, but the enlisted men, no, they didn't want.
They
They didn't want to know no more. They wanted away from there, not know more about it. But I always had the idea that the more you knew, the better off you were.
That's right.
And I studied those things. They were full of history, the ancient history, and I don't know what all. And I try to figure out how they think. They think different
That's
than we
right.
do.
I'm sure they did.
Oh, they do.
But didn't they have trouble pronouncing anything with an L and an R? And you would tell them your name was.
In the Japanese alphabet,
Yeah.
they cannot say, if they haven't had some coaching in English,
Yes.
they cannot say a true L.
Right.
And they can't say R just like we do. It's ra, draw, like D-R, draw. And L, Oh, that escapes them completely. They just can't.
And you told them your name was Filler Diller? Is that what it was?
One of them had asked me, one of the other Japanese laborers, what's your name? Nama wa what kandeska? And I'd say, Filler Diller. Oh, you can't believe what kind of contortions he went through.
I can imagine.
I just did it to have fun.
Well, you had to keep yourself sane, creating fun, didn't you?
Oh boy, have fun when you can.
Well, can you eat a bowl of rice even today?
Oh yeah.
Can you?
Oh sure.
Well, at least they don't have.
Some guys won't.
Well, I can understand.
Last I heard of.
Yeah. Did you close your eyes when you had to eat that rice over there?
No.
You didn't?
Bugs and all.
Well, I know one time.
Worms.
Yes, sir. Yeah. One time you mentioned about stealing a big old bag of garlic.
Yeah, about 20, 25 pounds of it.
And garlic without anything else is garlic, isn't it?
It's garlic.
And some of the boys overeat on just pure garlic, didn't they?
Well, they didn't want much of it. One half little piece is enough for them. I let some of them have a little bit if they wanted it.
Yeah.
But anyway, they wouldn't eat a whole one, a whole garlic clove, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that lasted me for months, and they said I stunk so bad they didn't want to be around me.
Well, Joe, tell us who Wilkie was.
Wilkie was a seaman, and when I got there to Zensuji, it wasn't but a day or two, and he got me off, and he said, Brown, he said, who are you really? And I said, well, Wilkie. I'd heard some guys tell me, Wilkie here, he was a little seaman off the Penguin at Guam when they sunk it, and said he's kind of off a little, peculiar, acts peculiar. And so, but anyway, he wanted to know, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Brown. Well, what's your business here? I said, well, I'm a POW like you are.
Yes, sir.
And he said, oh, now, in general, I'll tell you in general, just a few words.
Yeah.
Now, I think you're an agent sent in here to find out something. Now, what are you trying to find out? And I said, look, Wilkie, I am not an agent. I said, there's a war going on out there, and I was captured just like you were. And no, said, I know you guys can't tell us what you're up to. You was sent here. You're maybe an FBI agent or something. And I said, well, so anyway, he just went on.
Yeah.
So I went up and told the doctor that they said, told me was kind of checking on him. He was supposed to have been not a regular doctor, a psychiatrist type, a head shrinker.
Sure.
Anyway, he asked, I told him what Wilkie said and what I'd encountered, and he said, well, I don't know whether anything going to help him or not, but try again. Try to be friendly with him and all that. He said, I talked to him, and he said he's afraid of you. He's afraid of me.
Was he? Oh.
He's afraid I was trying to find out something, see?
Being as you said that, wasn't the Japanese a little afraid of him? Wilkie?
Oh! The Japanese, in their religion, they believe that an evil spirit has gotten into your body if you go crazy.
You're possessed.
And they won't touch them. They won't. I saw several Japanese men and women
Yes, sir.
going around, and they'd carry a little bowl, and they would, if they'd held it out there to you, if you got anything, you put it in there for them to eat. Why, they was fat, they was living good.
Oh my!
Why, and they wouldn't touch them. Some of them was almost naked, just rags hanging on them.
Joe, I know you talked about thinking about trying to escape, but when you're in Japan, that's an island.
Oh boy!
And if you escape, there's Japanese all around you, and then where are you going to go?
Where you going to go?
So that was kind of a just wasn't there, was it?
This really wasn't there.
And you talk about weight. What did you weigh when you were captured, maybe?
Around 2.5.
And you got down to how light?
The least I got to, if I remember correctly, was about 167 or 8.
That was pretty thin for you, wasn't it?
Well, I had gotten sick. I had, down at the railway yard, anything that looked edible, I ate it. And I had drank some food coloring, liquid, kind of thick stuff, syrupy. And I thought, well, that's got a little food value in it.
Yeah.
And it was it said banana on the side of it.
Yeah.
I read it, you know, in Japanese.
Yeah.
And so I swallowed it down, and I got deathly sick.
Did you?
Oh,
that was
man.
Really concentrated.
Concentrated stuff,
yeah.
real thick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I hit my lowest weight.
Well,
I couldn't eat for nearly 2 weeks.
Yeah. Now, they didn't like this set you up in a hotel and hold you in a cell. They made you work, didn't they?
Well, by the Geneva Convention, they stayed. Enlisted men were supposed to work.
I see.
So we didn't complain about that.
And when you was up on a mountain one day working, you had a knee that you could kind of do a.
Yeah, I heard it at boot camp.
Did you?
At Great Lakes.
But you could make your knee look funny.
Yeah, it was this one. I could push it with my hand.
Yes, sir.
And the bone would, the thing would go in and out.
Yeah.
See, and it didn't hurt. It didn't quit hurting.
And they brought a stretcher up there to you and packed you way down.
They was going to.
They was going to.
We had a guy at that time. The Japanese were feeling great. They thought they was winning the war. I mean, hands down.
Yeah.
And so they had allowed one fella, a corpsman, to act like our doctor up on the hill. And all he had to do was, if some guy happened to hurt his finger or mashed his toe or something, or working, why, he would certify to the guards that this guy was sick, and he'd get to lay around for an hour or two, and all that. He was enjoying it. And some of them put it up to him. He said, "Why don't you take that leg over there and show it to him?" And I did. And he said, "Oh, Brown, lay down, man. Well, you need to be in a stretcher. We're going to haul you home back to the camp." And we're, oh boy, he really had something important to look after. See, and of course I jumped up and he got mad.
Did he?
Oh boy. Well, I played tricks on anybody.
Yeah, well.
The rest of them are them too.
All right, yeah.
Hey, James.
Yeah, neat. Okay, Joe, I know one time over there you had what I call a serene moment. You heard someone calling your name.
Mm-hmm.
Were you sleeping?
It was a day off. We had a day off about every week. Later on, it got to be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But times got to really going bad with them. It got longer. But anyhow, it was up in February, and it was winter, but it was chilly in the barracks, very chilly. We didn't have any heat, by the way, in there. And I was outside with my back to a tree in what we could have called the backyard of the thing, along the south side of the barracks. And the sun was shining, and it was in the sun. It was warm there. I had my back to the north, and the building was there to protect from the north wind.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there enjoying myself, and all of a sudden I heard somebody say, "Joe! Oh, Joe!" I thought, well, wait a minute. Ain't nobody calls me Joe around here. By that time, it's either Brownie or Fingers, one or the other. And I looked around the tree, see somebody hiding back there at the barracks, joking and something. Nothing. And I got up and went to the barracks and looked all up and down in there. Nobody in there. All down at work. And so I went back out. And after the war was over, I found that my grandfather Vollmer had died in early February of that year. Now, was that some kind of a
Yeah.
omen, or what was it? I don't know. I have no way of proving it. I actually didn't record what day it was, but it was early February.
Joe, how did you get news, or could you feel the effects when the U.S. dropped the atomic bomb? How did you know about it?
Well, after the fact, one or two claimed they heard a terrible roar that night, but I didn't. Nothing. Anyway, the day, the 15th of August, we went to work as usual, and on the railroad, and I was at a little station. Takamatsu in the meanwhile had been burnt up. The whole town, a pretty large city, had been burnt completely up.
Yeah, goodness.
We got to see it once or twice by accident, but you could, where that had been a big city, there was nothing except scrap and junk. And in the distance, a skeleton of a 2 or 3 story building, steel skeleton, gone.
Joe, did the Japanese citizens, while you were a prisoner, treat you and look at you and make faces or obscene gestures? And then after the war was over, and I know you were just on there as more or less as a tourist, did they look at you any differently then?
No. When the emperor said the war's over, it was over.
It was over.
See, we were at work that day, and at noon, they all of a sudden, 2 more extra guards came in on a train to that station and said, we're taking you back to camp. And some of the guys had saw the Japanese gang up around, workers, gang up around the radio and listened very intently to what was being said. Well, they didn't know enough Japanese what it was all about, but anyway, they knew it was something big. And on the way back, we wondered, well, for a day and night, we hadn't heard any bombing.
Yeah.
No air raids, no sirens, no nothing.
Yeah.
And we decided the war was over. And so some of the guys thought that was just a sham and was going to jump off that train. They were going to take us back and shoot us and bury us.
Goodness.
And we talked them out of it. We got back to camp, and we were in there for several days. And then we got the word, get ready for a drop. We're going to drop food. Mark the camp, get up on top of the building, put big white cross up there, and red crosses and stuff. And we did, and they came over, and they hit everything but our place. They hit uptown. They're supposed to knock houses down. I don't know what all. And anyway, the message got back, so they tried again. This time, there was a drill field north of town, about a half a mile, and they dropped in there, and we went up. They told us when we'd be there, and boy, we got it. We got it.
Well, Joe, you lost some comrades over there, and I understood you got to bring their ashes back to the States. Well, that was bad enough that you lost them. At least you got to bring them back to the States.
There's an interesting thing about that. I don't know whether you need this in there. I carried that part of the way. Different ones carried it. The Japanese, the crematory, fixed up a pallet. That's the way they do that things. They cremate, and then they put them in a white, about 8 by 8 inch boxes, covered with white cloth, and they stack them on a board, and they got a cord that goes on your neck, and you carry this thing. There were 10, 11. There were 11. There's 2 8s, 4 4, and then 3 on top, and you carry it here at your waist, and I could just you look over the top, and there were 11 boxes. I found out after the war, we only lost 10 there. Now, one day on the way to work, this was after the 2 or 3 days after Takamatsu had been burned up. We knew that. We were going to work. They had decided that they was going to send us back to work. We didn't go to work. We went down there though, and did get to go and look across and see what happened in Takamatsu. They had burned it up, and the guards immediately turned us around and hooked us back to camp. But anyway, on the way out, about two or 3 days later, we were going back to. They'd sent us. Well, like I said, that's when we got to take that look, because it was 2 weeks or more before they took us down there to work to other places. But anyway, we were on the way down there, and we was just walking along as usual. They'd try to make us march, but that didn't work. No. And all of a sudden, I was looking, and I saw 3 police. They was escorting a fella in a pilot's uniform. I mean, pilot's coverall.
Flat jacket, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Not his flying suit. It was working. Their, I don't know what kind of brown tone thing. And he had a blindfold on. And they were escorting him. And we were talking and laughing and going on. And he heard that, and he lifted his head. He was walking with his head down, and he turned his ear up so he could hear better. And the guards noticed that, and I guess those fellows escorting him signaled. And the guard said, and he screamed at us, said, "Hurry, hurry, Haku, hurry, hurry." And they trotted us past there, and they went on and up that way, as best I could see. And my guess is, from what I heard through the years later, that fellow was probably a crew member of a PBY or not a PBY, one of the airplanes had been shot down, probably, and was he the guy in the 11th box? Yeah. To this day, I don't know.
Well, Joe...
the doctors certified they only lost 10 men at Zensuji during the war.
Well, what you went through was really remarkable, and I've known you all of my life. And did you know you and Lance Armstrong have something very much in common? In fact, I bet he's related to you. Lance Armstrong is the bicycler that won so many Tour de France's.
Oh!
He could put mind over matter.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. One time or another years ago.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well,
but I don't know. I don't know about that. My idea of heroes is...
I'm not saying hero now.
Well...
but I never saw you with a coat on in my life, out in that old cold weather.
I have worn coveralls
at
times when the wind was strong.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I know they treated you really well when you got in the United States, but what did it feel like when you got back home on your father's land? Was that really a tremendous feeling?
Well, I never did think I wasn't coming back.
Well, good deal.
No.
Good.
Some of the guys gave up.
Did they?
After a year.
Yeah.
They said, well, they gave it a year. They said, well, they quit writing their diaries. They quit doing all that. Well, I hate to say it, as bad as it was, I was having fun. I can actually say that I was having fun. It was starving. I was eating pretty good. I mean, not bad.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying making fun of the Japanese.
That's right. Yeah.
And Learned to speak quite a bit,
Yeah.
not a whole lot, but a lot. I could write the katakana alphabet, and well,
What else are you gonna do?
well, I just waiting for the day
Yeah.
when and I never did think I wasn't coming back.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you very much letting us talk to you today.
All right.
Miss Marcella, I appreciate you letting us come into your home, and appreciate you helping us out on this.
She answers the phone. I don't. I hardly ever answer it. Hardly.
Well, I certainly enjoyed visiting with you and your family, Miss Marcella, today, Joe, and I hope our viewers enjoyed this program. And for those of you out there that appreciates this type of work we're trying to do, get in touch with YHC TV at Dexter and Tyler Wagner or myself, and we would appreciate some sponsors, and I hope you like what you saw, what we're trying to do, and try to help us out at YHC TV. This is James Hendley and Tyler Wagner and Joe and Marcella Brown. They were our first victims, and I hope you appreciated it.